All right, welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and Abdul Carter, the draftee from the Giants, now the latest individual to say he, too, was prank called on the NFL draft. This, of course, comes after the NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons and their defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich, for a situation involving Ulbrich's son, Jax, who admitted to pranking Shedeur Sanders. So to get some more insight into why this keeps happening, let's bring in NFL Network senior insider Ian Rapoport. Of course, you can see him on Insiders on NFL Network weekdays at 7 p.m. Ian, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem.
It sounded like maybe this was a one-off thing with Shedeur, but the fact that many other draftees are saying that this happened to them too, how does this keep happening?
Well, I mean, the reality is this happens every year. Every single year. And I think sometimes people sort of think it's funny. I mean, you judge from the reaction of people involved or even from the reaction of social media, which I usually ignore. You know, sometimes people think it's funny. I think the difference with Shedeur is that it was not funny. It was clearly mean-spirited. It was clearly sort of poking fun or taking advantage of someone who was probably going through one of the worst things in their life. And I think that's why it had such a visceral reaction. Like someone calls Abdul Carter and he's going to be picked third. That seems a little more harmless than like Shedeur Sanders, who's going through this like epic draft free fall, handling it unbelievably well, like a true professional, good-hearted, kept smiling the whole time. And someone is like going out of their way to, you know, take advantage of him and make fun of him at probably the worst moment of his life. I think that's why it got the reaction it did. You know, what sometimes happens in the NFL and also in life is punishments sometimes come as a message to others. Like, I particularly don't think the prank calls are funny at all. I don't think most pranks are funny, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask. But what I hope this does is get people in the future to kind of think like, all right, like if I do a prank call and act like an idiot, I might not necessarily get punished, but I might. And hopefully it causes people to think twice a little bit.
I could not agree with you more, Ian. And sticking with Shedeur Sanders, of course, as he got drafted to the Cleveland Browns, as now a question about the quarterback room. There were already questions when Joe Flacco was acquired by the Browns. They've got Kenny Pickett in that trade with the Eagles, Deshaun Watson, who's nursing that Achilles rupture. And then, of course, they drafted Dylan Gabriel. So 5 quarterbacks heading into camp for the Browns. What does this say about the future for specifically Deshaun Watson and their expectations in his return, but in general what they're expecting for their quarterback depth chart?
Yeah, well, first of all, Deshaun Watson is not expected to play this season. He is recovering from a second Achilles tear, same leg. I have not talked to anyone yet that believes he will be on the field next season. And at that point, you know, you'd imagine the organization would move on from him in some way that makes its salary cap palatable, but we'll see. As far as the other 4, you know, teams say they want competition, and they're going to get it. I mean, this is going to be a real quarterback competition. Now, each of these quarterbacks has a little bit of a different role, a different sort of vehicle to the starting job. I think Kenny Pickett, they traded for, didn't give up a ton, but traded for him. He's got plenty of starting experience, has shown himself at least physically and mentally capable enough to be a starter. Joe Flacco is getting up in age. He has started plenty, and in fact, in Cleveland, led them to the playoffs, coming off the bench in place of Watson. He is an option as well. And then the 2 rookies, to me, are a little different. You have, I would say with Dylan Gabriel, you have a quarterback that, you know, a little shorter than you would like, but teams really thought he could be like a really good, kind of high energy, do it all, run around backup. Instant offense, come off the bench, keep your team afloat in short bursts. Like that role kind of exists in the NFL. Call it the Case Keenum, right? So I think that's what he was drafted for. And then for Shedeur, the reality is no one knows. Some teams think he is a future franchise quarterback. Still didn't get drafted to the 5th round for a variety of reasons. But there are teams who think he's a future starter, future excellent quarterback in the NFL. If that's the case for the Browns, that is a lottery ticket. That is something they can, if he develops into a starter, only spending a 5th round pick, that can carry you for years and years and years. If not, okay, move on from a 5th round pick. Teams do it all the time. No cost, no big deal.
So let's just say hypothetically, Shedeur Sanders is the future of Cleveland, and he does do incredibly well. But let's just say hypothetically, Kevin Stefanski is not. Do you think that there's going to be this clamoring for Dion to then go to Cleveland?
Well, my guess is if Shedeur Sanders does well enough to be the starting quarterback, then the coach who helped him get there probably sticks. That would be my guess. Like, we have seen coaches lose their jobs after drafting a quarterback in the first round or a first-year quarterback. But usually when the coach is instrumental in helping the quarterback play the way he does, usually that coach is not in trouble. But let's say he is. Let's say things don't go great. There's always going to be that sort of pressure of whatever whatever team Shedeur is on, of should Deion be the head coach. I don't even know that Deion wants to be a head coach in the NFL, to be totally honest. I mean, he's never said he does. And I don't know that it's the best for Shedeur anyway. But anyway, a lot of hypotheticals there. If that happens, we can come back on to discuss it, but long way until that's even a possibility.
True.
And we'll have you back on if it does happen. Lots of hypotheticals. But last minute here for you, Ian. I'm curious, just shifting over to George Kittle with that historic deal he got as the highest paid tight end across the NFL in history. But the crazy thing about that deal was how he announced it. I mean, we've been seeing more and more players, not only is the market changing in terms of contracts, but the process of announcing and breaking news is changing where players are announcing it themselves. As someone that's always breaking news themselves, how much does this impact and change the landscape, even for your role, of how news is being released?
Well, I would prefer I get to break all the news.
Yeah.
Like, if any player wants to sort of do it themselves, they should just send me a video and I'll do it. And I think that would be that to me is the number one option. Always just give it to me and I'll handle it. Other than that, like, if a player wants to sort of break their own news, as long as they have a handle on it, like as long as they're not waiting till 2 days after they sign, well, it'll get out anyway. Like, I'm sort of okay with it, like, I don't own all the news, it's not like it's my job to go find it, but it's not like I'm entitled to it, So if they want to give it to their buddies at, the Bussin' podcast, or like McAfee broke the Saquon news on his extension, like, these guys do things for a living too. These guys are excellent at what they do. If a player wants to go to them to break it, or if they just happen to break it, like, that's all good. Like they earned it, they deserve it. I don't really have any problem with it.
All right, we're fine with that too, as long as Ian gets some of those scoops as well. Ian Rapoport joining us here on Front Office Sports today. Ian, thanks so much.
All right, thanks for having me, guys.
And we have a lot more Front Office Sports today coming your way right after this.